Craig, what is your title?
What is my title?
Yeah. For the purpose of the show, I'll
Sure.
say Craig Tennant, and I'll say these
You can
words.
just say, leadership coach.
Leadership coach. Do you want me to say anything about Shadow Work Facilitator?
Phil for you.
Yeah, you can say, my title is leadership coach, and I'm a certified shadow work facilitator. I'm a certified shadow work facilitator, coach, and organizational consultant.
Certified Shadow Work Facilitator.
Facilitator, coach, and organizational consultant, which means I'm certified to work with people in groups around shadow work, to run shadow work in groups. That's the shadow work facilitator.
Yeah.
The coach is working one-on-one with people using shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
And the organizational consultant is working with groups, teams in an organization using shadow work.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is shadow work kind of underpin all of your coaching practices?
The coaching that I do, yeah. I mean, coaching always has a component of sort of telling people what to do or helping them with ideas. But shadow work is really about identifying where there's shadow at play, bringing it out into the open, and helping people to work with that in a space where they can shift the shadow.
Yeah.
So it's no longer working against them, but working for them.
Yeah.
And that happens in group, with one person in a group environment, or with one person one-on-one, or with teams.
Yeah.
In an organization.
Because there can be shadow with me and myself. There's unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
There's shadow in a dyad.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that we don't know is really impacting our connection.
Yep.
And then there's shadow in group dynamics. Is that what we're talking about?
Pretty much. So I don't know if this is getting ahead of it, but so Carl Jung, the psychologist, kind of coined the term shadow, the part of myself that I hide, repress, and deny, right? But it's the part that drives behavior.
Right.
Right. So I'm not aware of it, and it's driving my behavior.
Yeah.
And then Robert Bly wrote a little book on the human shadow, and more about people. And he talked about how people were all born without shadow. We're born with a 360 view of the world. We just talk when we talk. We go to the bathroom when we go to the bathroom. We don't censor ourselves as young ones. But then society and family starts to put barriers on how we do things. And so I might start to realize it's not okay for me to be angry in the environment that I'm in. So I have this bag over my shoulder, and I put my anger in that bag. Or it's actually not okay for me to be big and shine and be confident in myself and to own that I know a lot or that I'm really cool. And so I put that in the bag. And so after time, I've got all this stuff in the bag that I'm carrying behind me, but I'm not aware of it. And it drives how I behave. So I may not have the full experience that I want. So shadow work in general is about looking at what's in that bag in a ritual space, a space where there's no real world consequences. Take it out with good eldership. That's me.
Yeah.
In theory. Where we get to work with it and see things that we might not see. That's why it comes out of shadow into consciousness. And then to work with it in a way that can shift it so that when I put it back in, it's not driving my behavior in the same way that it used to.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at shadow work in general.
I'm reminded of a quote by Carl Jung. Until the unconscious is made conscious, it will rule your life, and you'll call it fate.
Yep. I heard you share that recently, and it's spot on. Yeah. So that's what we do in shadow work. And so whether it's with an individual that happens to be working in a group environment, that's where I facilitate, or an individual that I'm working with one-on-one, that's coaching.
Yeah.
Or with a group of people working in team environment who may not see their collective shadow, all of that's consistent across all three of those.
Yeah. The book, is this the book that we went through in the new Warrior Adventure training where is it Iron Giant?
Iron John.
Iron John.
Yeah. No, I believe that's also Robert Bly, and I could be mistaken. That is a fundamental component. That's basically the wild man's story.
Right.
Right. And that's about the whole story about the wild man who's in the cage. And, he tells the little boy, go get the key for the cage.
Right.
It's under your mother's pillow.
Right. I remember that.
And there's a big lake. And, I'm looking for, what is it here that a man should not do? The adventurer comes and he's looking, and all of that. That's a different story, a different book.
What is the book that you're talking about?
A little book about the human shadow.
That's the name of it.
That's the name of the book.
A little book about the human shadow.
By Robert Bly,
okay.
who was a poet, philosopher, writer. A little book about the human shadow. And that's where he tells basically what I just described to you about the bag over my shoulder, and I begin to learn what's not acceptable in the environment that I grow up in.
Yeah.
And I begin to put things away. And so what happens is a couple of things happen, like if I learn that it's not okay to be angry, right?
Yeah.
Because it was met with some force when I was young. If I was angry, one is I begin to attract people who are angry. Could be, right? And
because they're expressing in ways that you cannot.
Yeah, or I say I don't ever want to be that way because it's not okay to be that way, and because it's in shadow for me, somehow that just attracts people that are angry. Yeah. And another thing that happens quite often is that energy now, because I'm not expressing it on purpose or acting it out on purpose, it comes out by accident.
Sideways. Yeah.
So I find I don't want to be angry. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not that angry person. But if you ask the people around me, they'll be like, that guy gets angry.
Yeah.
And it's not usually relevant to what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's another way shadow shows up. So that's really the area that I focus on. I love to talk about.
Yeah.
And then shadow work itself is a model and a set of processes and even scripts of questions that help me to help people figure out what's in shadow for them and to work with it.
Yeah.